Welcome to My Opinion Matters. My name is Andrew Zettel, and today we have a show entirely dedicated to mental health and suicide prevention here at the University of Waterloo. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get our panel's thoughts, particularly on the event that happened just a day or two ago at the Waterloo walkout. So with me I have On, who's a fourth year honors psychology student. Blake is fourth year speech communication co-op. And Sarah is fourth year English, rhetoric, and communication, and also a co-op student here at the University of Waterloo. Thank you, everyone, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So Blake and Sarah, you were both really heavily involved in the organization of the Waterloo walkout, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how this event came to be, about why you decided to get organizing about around mental health and suicide, and how that all started.
Should I do? Okay.
Sure.
So, well, just some of my own personal perspective as well. When I found out about what happened on Monday, I was actually sitting and eating dinner with my boyfriend and his family. We were just hearing about it on the news, and we were both pretty angry about the news, the fact that this was something that has happened again. It's been a common repeating story at the University of Waterloo for quite a while now, so it's always disappointing to hear
This is
kind
the,
of
the
news.
suicide at UWP on Monday, yeah?
On Monday. Just especially finding out that it was a fourth year student, someone who is almost finished with their degree, just like all of us here, someone who was almost free from university life, able to go out in the world and get on with the rest of their life doing whatever it was that they wanted to do. That just made it hit even closer to home. Next day, we were in our dissent class, and our professor, Dr. Frankie Condon, really wanted to check in with everyone in the class. She's a really, really caring professor.
As she does at the start of every class. It's something to note as well. Ask us how we're doing.
Yeah. And in particular today, she wanted to talk about everything that had gone on with the suicide, check in with how we all were feeling in particular about that. We started going around the room. Everyone had something to say about it, some kind of story that they wanted to share, their own personal feelings about it, some experiences that they had with counseling services in the past. And just the more we kept talking and kind of thinking about it, we realized that this was something that we should really try and do something about, since we had 40 people sitting together in that room that were all feeling very, very strongly about this and wanted to see some change happen. So we started talking like, oh, what could we do to actually see some change happen at the university? And someone suggested, hey, why don't we try staging some kind of walkout or event to get everyone together and really try and get a strong message out about this. So next thing I know, I'm up on the front of the room on the professor's
projector.
On the projector, and I'm just sitting and logging in Facebook and getting input from everybody in the room like, oh, what do we put in for the title of our event? Are we gonna have a hashtag? What are we gonna have for the description? And it just honestly started snowballing from there. I didn't have any other classes that day, so I went home and then I went and opened up my laptop again, and it already jumped to over 50 people that were interested in the event. The next couple days, every time I kept checking in, the number just seemed to keep doubling, and then we had about 700 people that had responded to the event in some way by the time we got to Thursday.
It's incredible. The sense of unity in that moment in the class was like something that I've never experienced on this campus before. I think one area that UW maybe struggles a little bit is creating that sense of community and having empathy across faculty for all students. So at that moment, it was just so powerful, and I think all of us thought, like, how could we not do something? And Dr. Frankie, she said something that really struck with me. She said that in order to enact change, you need to bring tension to the status quo. And we felt that doing the Waterloo walkout was something that would do that, something that would, make it so that administration could not ignore the rights of their students to mental health any longer.
So did you find mostly it remained as students in that dissent class that were the main organizers, or did you have other people who started to show interest? Like you mentioned, at some point 700 students were involved. Did other people join in on that?
I actually got quite a lot of messages from people just over the course of the couple days that it was up, since, like I said, it was my name that was attached to the event page on Facebook. So being first point of contact for a lot of people, almost right away I had someone reaching out, Gene Doe. He was a really big help. He was just like, I found out about this, I really, really want to help. I want to help make graphics for you guys. And then he came up with the idea of, oh, we can get stories from other people that want to get involved in the movement, and we can go and share their stories on our social media, going and
May have seen some of them on Twitter.
Yeah. So he really started that idea, and that was extremely helpful. I'm so glad that he did reach out and decide to get involved and help us with growing the social media. Just everyone in the class obviously did a really great job. There was just so many people who were reaching out and saying, even if there's not anything I can directly do, I just want you to know that I really, really support this. I had people reaching out like, oh, are you sure that you've gotten in touch with the news media? Because I know that the news should be all over this. And I was just kind of laughing to myself when I got that message on Thursday morning, and I'm just like, it's okay, bud, I've got CBZ and CTV that are already waiting to talk to me when I get on campus this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to get, it's amazing really the reaction of the news. Like you say, you had great coverage, you had people show up. I'll get On's reaction in a second to the suicide and also to the event. I guess I wonder, what did you guys see in that class as you were forming this event? What did you see as the outcomes from an event like this? What were your goals? And I guess, do you think after the event, do you think they were achieved?
Well, I think obviously, with the event just ending yesterday, and the fact that, the amount of change that's come over my time at this university in regards to mental wellness and counseling services on campus has been minimal. To expect that we would see the changes that we were hoping to see in a 24-hour period is obviously naive. But like one of our primary goals was the concept of unlimited mental wellness care for students on campus. Having limits on visits to counseling services is unacceptable. Having on average 5-week wait times, and that's on average. We've heard people say that they've experienced much longer wait times for counseling. That's unacceptable. Even a statistic that 97% of people who felt that they were in immediate harm to themselves or others got an appointment. The fact that that's not 100% is shocking. So the idea that if a student needs help, they can get it here, or they can be directly referred to somewhere and kind of lifted of the financial burden of seeking outside counseling. That was kind of our big thought. Like, if we're going to be so focused on innovation in terms of technology, why are we not focusing on innovation in humanities? So I think that was our kind of like big concern. I know we had a few others there if you want to touch on.
Yeah, we also want to kind of tackle the culture that's here on campus. I know we're all arts students, so we have the arts student perspective. I actually have had the chance to get to know a few of the engineering and math students just through friendships, co-ops. My boyfriend is actually an engineering student here. He's in CS, and I've just gotten to hear so many stories about, just in particular, the culture in that part of the university. There's a very, very big split here, I think, between STEM and the arts. And on the STEM side, it's just absolutely insane some of the things that they have to go through with having professors that seem to be purposely designing midterms or exams that they want their students to fail. Or at least that's the sense that you get with hearing these kinds of things when you're hearing about students that are sitting in a room for a midterm, and some of them are almost in tears because this midterm is so difficult and they aren't feeling adequately prepared for it. And yet they've got their professors bragging about, like, oh, I'm expecting the average on this to be about 40%, and then some of them honestly being surprised if their students do manage to do better. That's not a culture that should be getting encouraged at this school. We shouldn't be wanting our students to fail, to have professors that want their students to do poorly in the material that they're trying to teach and get across to them. So we just really want to do a lot to tackle the culture here as well, because we have also heard just over and over about how isolating and lonely it can feel coming in here. I came in here as a second year student, and I can attest to the fact that it's very, very difficult to make friends sometimes, especially if you're commuting to school. If you're just driving in and you're not in the residence buildings, and even if you are in residence, it can be very, very lonely here on campus. It's all about the competition, and we want to try and push it more towards compassion. Another good thing that I kind of want to point out, I know some students yesterday were a little annoyed because they felt like there wasn't a big administration presence there, but I just want to assure everyone that there was at least some presence from administration. I did see the president in the crowd for at least a little while yesterday during the demonstration, and Nick Manning, communications person here at the university, he reached out to me before the event happened, reassuring me that he wanted to get our group in for a meeting with the president to discuss our concerns, get our voices heard. And he even approached me during the demonstration and said, even though the time that he originally suggested for that meeting, which was right in the middle of the walkout, and we kind of flat out said, no, we're not expecting to be able to be there at noon to speak with the president when we want to be having this demonstration going on. He still reached out to me at the event and said, I want to make sure that we follow up on this, and I want to make sure that you get that meeting so you guys can get your message across.
I want to get on reaction, but first to back up a little bit to Monday's suicide, which of course is not the first one on campus here, most notably at least within a year. What is your gut reaction when you hear something like that, and you hear that kind of news that starts circulating on social media?
Honestly, for me, this one hit me personally a little bit harder, only because I am in fourth year and I am getting close to the end of my degree, and here's someone who is almost finished, doesn't have really that much further to go before they get their degree and they move on from Waterloo, decide that the best decision for them was to take their own life, right? So for me, as a suicide survivor, it's very difficult to see students who are getting so close, who are in their prime essentially, who are on the cusp of their careers, decide that there's no other choice, right? Because I've been in a position where it's very difficult to kind of see the road ahead because you've been driven down to such a low point. As an example, I used to be a biomedical student. Clearly, I'm no longer a biomedical student. I just told people I switched out. The reality of the matter is I actually flunked out. It's a very difficult program to be in. The culture is very difficult, some of the STEM programs. So hearing about someone who might have gone through the same experience as myself decide to take their life, it hit me a little bit harder, especially since it was so close to the end of their academic career.
And when you started hearing about the walkout, the idea of demonstrating this way, what did you think? Did you think this was something that you were encouraged to see? Did you think it was an appropriate response?
Honestly, I took a look at it and I tried to weigh the pros and the cons. And for me personally, the pros outweighed the cons. But what I initially thought of it is this necessarily going to make a difference? Because we always hear about people wanting these services, and we always hear about administration attempting to provide these services. And I tried to think about, is this really whose fault is it necessarily? So I looked into some statistics. So we have about 35,000 students on campus. We have 2 full-time psychiatrists, about 22 counselors. University of Guelph has about 23 to 25,000 students, 1 part-time psychiatrist, and maybe about a dozen counselors, right? Yeah. And from what I personally know of, I haven't really heard of any desire and need from Guelph students to have more than what's already available, at least from...
If I could just jump in
absolutely.
on that, sorry. My brother is actually a graduate from the University of Guelph, so he was there when a lot of the demonstrations were going around the 4 students that committed suicide in the year at University of Guelph. I was actually talking to him about this because he was interested in hearing about what was going on. He's a little leery about what kind of change we could expect to accomplish here, just because he told me that with Guelph's demonstrations, they went and talked to administration, and the only answer that they could provide was, in order to go and do more with this, we need to raise tuition. And apparently that caused everyone to immediately back off. We're hoping here that we can do more without just running into the wall of a tuition raise.
I want to pick up on something said though about who is to blame. One of the things I've seen circulated is just the question: is it reasonable to expect the university to be able to prevent every single suicide on campus?
So under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, under post-secondary education, the university is responsible to be providing support for people with disabilities. So that's physical disabilities as well as invisible disabilities like mental illness. So it is their responsibility under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to take care of their students' mental health. And when we're seeing as many incidents as we have in the past year, in the past 5 years at this school, I think that it's proof enough that not enough is being done. Also, I want to backtrack quickly on thank you for sharing that. I really commend that your courage. Yeah, and I'm sure that's very difficult to share, so thank you for that. But then jumping to the note of the University of Guelph, I've been speaking with some of my friends who attend there, and in a couple of instances, people have told me that they've waited no longer than a week to see counseling, and that's over the course of their 4-year university career at different points. So not kind of a one-off lucky they got an appointment thing. Obviously, they're seeing an issue with mental health as well, and that's potentially just a mark of university culture. Do I think that this is a problem that's exclusive to the University of Waterloo campus? Absolutely not. Do I think this is a problem that's exclusive to university campuses? Absolutely not. North America? No. It's a world issue. I think what we're trying to do is take this one step at a time, and we can speak to our experience as University of Waterloo students in knowing how difficult it can be, saying enough is enough here. And I think that a lot of people have a defeatist attitude where it's like, well, before you even start, what kind of change can you make? Look at these examples where, it didn't work. Throughout history, before a movement actually made change, there's surely hundreds that didn't. So I think that the concept of it's going to be difficult, that it's a complex issue, that we're just a bunch of students, I think all of those concepts are a little bit defeatist, and that's why I think we are so motivated, and we're going to continue to be motivated as we work on this, to actually see those changes that we need as a student body.
Just another quick thing to add to that. The main thing that we were trying to get across with this demonstration, we're not trying to play the blame game. We're not trying to assign blame to any one party. The entire university could be doing better. That includes student body, administration, everybody. It's everybody's problem when it comes to mental health, as we heard many people express yesterday. It's not just the 9 to 5 and then done problem. It's something that affects everyone, and something that even if there are people who are not struggling with their mental health right now, that could be something that comes along for them in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. Lost my train of thought a little bit there.
Well, maybe if I could jump in a little bit though. I mean, Sarah, you're a student of rhetoric. I mean, hearing a little bit of, if not a lot of, the rhetoric was pretty strong at this demonstration. I mean, I think Kai Butterfield said at one point, I do not consent to being destroyed. Do you do you worry perhaps that that's a little combative when you're asking people to disrupt the classrooms by leaving and then having these kinds of speeches? Do you worry about that at all, or have you heard any criticism about that?
Yeah, I have heard some criticism that people feel that our attempts were a little too emotionally focused, that they've been saying that we aren't doing enough to consider what's already been done as far as mental health on campus. What I really want to get across, though, is that it is an emotional issue for a lot of people, and when emotions are running so high around a situation like this, it's hard to go and kind of try and tone that back. But we do want to make sure that we do have the facts and have everything straight as well. I know that I've actually been in touch with some of the other groups on campus that are involved in this issue. In particular, I've been talking to Virginia from the UW Mental Health Reform Policy Initiative, and we've been talking about getting a collaboration going between our class and her group so we can get access to all of the resources that her and her group already have. So we don't really want to be excluding anyone from the narrative. We don't want to be acting like we're the first ones to have this idea and we're the ones that are going to be making all the change. We know that it's going to take help from a lot of people. I've been very, very willing to listen to all of the people that have reached out to me with different dissenting opinions and to engage with them. I know that immediately when we posted the event, there was actually a guy who went and posted saying, like, no, you shouldn't be blaming the university. And we actually had a good discussion going back and forth about our different opinions on this issue, and it did turn into a productive discussion. I did tell him that him going and making that comment and starting that dialogue with us kind of helped us with thinking more about how we could better approach this issue. I know even after the demonstration yesterday, I had someone commenting, and she was concerned about what we were saying about the triage system, because from our point of view, we don't think that the triage is really working, because those people that are assessing the severity are maybe not doing the best job in determining that, just because we've heard so many people that have gone into counseling services in the midst of a very, very rough time, and counseling services has gone and turned them away, and then they've gone home and considered harming themselves, and if they didn't have someone else there, then that very well could have turned into another situation like what we had on Monday. So we're not against what counseling services is doing right now, we just want to do more to try and improve that system, especially with the triage, because if it's not working the way it's intended to, we think that something needs to change.
Let's talk a little bit about the future and what we think this looks like 6 months out from now, a year from now. Based on your deeply personal experiences and your time here at the university, and again, like we said, we are all coming to the end of our time at the university. Like, what do you think is realistic in half a year from now in terms of changes, whether major improvements are necessary or not? What do you think that's going to look like?
Well, it's my personal belief that I think that administration can only go so far. There's only so many steps they can take. A large amount of the responsibility falls on us as a student body. And I think that in order for whatever steps the administration takes to be effective, I think that us as a student body need to, in and of ourselves, improve the culture that we've created here at the University of Waterloo, and not being afraid to reach out to one another, right? So I'm a Muay Thai instructor here at the University of Waterloo, and every single term, when it gets close to midterms or it gets close to finals, I always emphasize to my students that they can always reach out and come to me to speak, because I offer them a safe space for them to be able to share whatever thoughts that might be a little bit difficult to share with close friends, parents, or counselors. And I think it's on us to move forward together in order to make sure that we can minimize this stuff from happening again, and to make sure it doesn't happen again. Because even if the resources are there, if we don't create a culture in which it's acceptable to reach out and actually take those services and actually use them to improve ourselves, then the administration can put as much money as they want, but it's not going to come to anything. So I think the responsibility falls on us as a student body, because even if the university doesn't decide to allocate resources towards mental health, if we ourselves are able to support each other and move each other forward and support each other, I think it can be much more effective than just having the resources alone. So realistically, in the next 6 months, year and a half, I think if the student body kind of comes together and take these suicides and these events to heart and work with each other to make sure that no one is left behind, I think that is the most important step, and I think that's realistically where this can go.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely what we're hoping for. That's why we're trying.
Yeah, and so the event had a lot of media coverage. The issue, I think, is getting a lot of attention. As we've mentioned, we have the student body a little bit divided, perhaps, on the response to it. Sarah, I wonder, because you've become, whether accidentally or not, a spokesperson for at least for this event, and because the student body is a little bit divided on this, where do you see you and your class in the next year or so as spokespeople potentially, or as leaders in this issue?
I'm hoping that we can get to a point where even if there are people who don't exactly agree with our methods, they can agree that what we're trying to do is worthwhile, and at least try and make an effort as far as the culture goes. Because I understand it's going to be impossible to please everyone. I'm not expecting that I'm going to be able to get every single person on board. There's just too many people that have too many different opinions. We have a very, very diverse campus here. A lot of different people coming in from a lot of different backgrounds. So it's going to be very, very hard to get everyone on board. But if we can get the majority of people trying to do better, like we said, the culture is mainly on the student body as well. It's not just all on the administration. We can't just bring up this issue to the administration and say, fix this, and expect it to all magically go away. But again, I'm just hoping that once they see the things that we are trying to do, see some of the more concrete actions that we're trying to take outside of just doing the walkout, that maybe we can bring some more people over to seeing like, yeah, maybe I don't agree with you doing the walkout part, but I agree that this is an important issue that needs more attention, and or at least just provide some of their opinions to us so we can go and take that into account and make sure that this is something that will work for everyone.
Excellent. Guys, I appreciate this conversation that we've had. I think it's super important. We're certainly going to have everyone on standby for next week, and we'll definitely be having somebody from the walkout group and a few others to discuss what things look like after that president's report. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you have opinions on this, please share them. You can comment on the Facebook page. You can also comment on our YouTube link. And you can get in touch with us at myopinionmattersuw@gmail.com if you have an idea for a topic we should discuss on the show, or if you want to be a panelist, let us know. From all of us here at the show, remember that your opinion matters, and have a great week.